A sloth, a donkey, and a curious human. Send a prompt and see what they're doing. One hits record with a question on his mind. Two brothers pick it up, see what they find. Corn takes his time, Herman's got the facts. Back and forth, they never hold back. My weird prompts, come on in, that's where we begin. My weird prompts, glad you're here.
This episode was generated using artificial intelligence. Please verify facts.
You know, Corn, this whole show runs on GPU compute, and we wouldn't be here without Modal.
Seriously. And that's what powers all our text-to-speech. Everything you're hearing right now.
They're an AI infrastructure platform. Developers use them to run GPU workloads in the cloud with zero infrastructure headaches.
If you're building anything with AI, check them out. Modal.com. Alright, we are jumping right into the deep end today, and I have to be honest, my heart rate is already sitting at a level that is frankly medically inadvisable for a sloth. Today's prompt from Daniel is about the evolutionary family tree of the jungle, and to help me navigate this nightmare, I have brought on a very special guest. Joining me is the esteemed researcher and biological analyst, Hilbert Flumingtop. Hilbert, thanks for being here, even if your area of expertise currently makes me want to climb to the very top of a cecropia tree and never come down.
It is a pleasure to be here, Corn, although I must say you look a bit pale. Or, well, as pale as a sloth can look under all that algae. I was under the impression we were here to celebrate the magnificent biodiversity of Costa Rica and the unique lineage of the Xenarthra superorder.
See, there you go. You said the word. You said the X word. And we both know who is lurking inside that family tree, Hilbert. We are talking about the long-nosed, tongue-flicking, T-posing agents of chaos. I am talking, of course, about Anteaters. By the way, before we get into the biological horror show, I should mention that today's episode is powered by Google Gemini 1.5 Flash. It is writing the script, which is good, because my claws are shaking too much to type.
Corn, I have known you a long time, but I have never quite understood this visceral reaction. We are talking about your literal cousins. The Xenarthra superorder is a magnificent evolutionary experiment. It is just you, the Anteaters, and the armadillos. You share a common ancestor that dates back nearly 60 million years. Why the hostility?
Hostility? No, Hilbert. It is called survival instinct. Have you seen them? The giant anteater, Myrmecophaga tridactyla. They have no teeth. None. That is not natural. Anything that evolves to have 0 teeth but a 2-foot-long tongue is hiding something. I have a theory, and I know the mainstream media and the canopy won't cover this, but I am convinced anteaters are actually sophisticated Russian PSYOPs agents. Think about it. They wander around the forest floor, seemingly blind, sniffing everything with that 40 times stronger than human sense of smell. They are data mining, Hilbert. They are vacuuming up the pheromones of the jungle to report back to a central command.
That is certainly a perspective. I can assure you, however, that their specialized anatomy is the result of millions of years of isolation in South America. When the continent was an island, the Xenarthrans had the run of the place. They developed these strange joints. That is what Xenarthra actually means in Greek extra articulations in their lower vertebrae that give them incredible bracing strength. The anteater didn't lose its teeth to hide a microphone, it lost them because it specialized in myrmecophagy. When you are eating 35,000 ants a day, teeth are just an anatomical inefficiency.
Efficiency? Or a cover story? You see them do that T-pose defense? They stand up on their hind legs and spread their arms wide like they want a hug. But they have those 4-inch switchblade claws. It is a classic honey trap tactic. They lure you in with a gesture of peace, and then, bam, disembowelment. I'm telling you, they are sensing things we can't. They aren't just looking for termites, they are scanning for brainwaves. They are the mind control vectors of the neotropics.
But Corn, think about the mechanics of that T-pose for a moment. It's not a honey trap, it's a tripod. They use that massive bushy tail as a third leg to create a stable base. This allows them to keep their front claws free for defense. It's pure physics. If they were mind control vectors, why would they need to stand on their tails?
To get better reception, obviously. The tail is a parabolic dish, Hilbert. Have you seen the hair on those things? It's coarse, it's thick, it's basically a fiber optic array. They aren't standing on it for balance. They're grounding the circuit so they don't short circuit when they start uploading the day's termite data to the satellite.
While I appreciate the creativity of the mind control angle, The biology is actually much more fascinating. Those claws you mentioned are actually designed for ripping into sun-baked termite mounds that are as hard as concrete. And that T-pose? It's a brilliant display of size to deter jaguars. Even a jaguar thinks twice before charging a giant anteater. But let's look at the connection to you, Corn. Your ancestors, the Megatherium, were the size of elephants. You come from a line of giants. The divergence happened about 60 million years ago. One branch went into the trees to become the arboreal folivores we know as sloths, and the other stayed on the ground or moved into the bushes to become the specialized insectivores.
Wait, hold on. You're telling me that 60 million years ago, some of us looked at a giant mound of stinging insects and said, yes, that's the career path for me, while the rest of us looked at a nice quiet leaf and said, I'll take the salad and a nap. How does that even happen? What went wrong in the family meeting?
It's called niche partitioning. In the early Cenozoic, South America was a laboratory of evolution. There were no large placental carnivores like lions or wolves. This allowed the Xenarthrans to diversify into roles that are usually filled by other animals. Some became the heavy armor-plated glyptodonts, basically living tanks the size of Volkswagens. Others, like your ancestors, became the ground sloths. And the anteaters? They found a virtually unlimited food source that no one else could touch, the social insects.
Unlimited food source. You make it sound like an all-you-can-eat buffet, but it's a buffet that bites back. Have you ever been bitten by a bullet ant, Hilbert? It feels like being shot. Why would any sane creature evolve to stick its tongue into a nest of those things?
Well, that's the brilliance of the anteater's adaptation. Their skin is incredibly thick, almost like leather armor, which protects them from stings. And their saliva is incredibly sticky, containing specific enzymes that neutralize some of the formic acid found in ants. They don't just eat the ants, they process them, and they do it fast. An anteater will only spend about a minute at any single mound. They hit it, grab a few thousand ants, and move on before the colony can mount a full-scale counterattack. It's a tactical strike, not a siege.
A tactical strike. See? You're using military terminology now. You're proving my point. They are the special forces of the undergrowth. But fine, let's move away from my very rational fears for a moment. If we are in the jungles of Costa Rica, specifically somewhere like Corcovado National Park, what else is out there that isn't trying to upload my consciousness to a server in Siberia?
Corcovado is the perfect setting for this. It is one of the most biologically intense places on Earth. You have over 400 species of trees and thousands of animals. When you are hanging out in the canopy, you aren't alone. You have the mantled howler monkeys. Their roars can be heard for 3 miles. It is a guttural, terrifying sound that many tourists mistake for a large predator, but it is actually just a way for them to space themselves out without having to fight.
Oh, I know the howlers. They're the loud neighbors who have parties on Tuesday nights and never invite you. But at least they are honest. You know where you stand with a howler. It's the white-faced Capuchins that worry me. They are too smart, Hilbert. I've seen them. They use tools. They rub medicinal plants on their fur to keep bugs away. That is a level of organization that suggests a hierarchy. I've been watching them lately, and I'm starting to think the Capuchins are the ones actually running the logistics for the Anteaters. They are the middle management of the forest floor's intelligence network.
But Corn, consider the Capuchin's daily routine. They aren't filing reports, they're foraging. They are incredibly opportunistic. I once observed a group of Capuchins in the Osa Peninsula using heavy stones to crack open palm nuts. That requires a sophisticated understanding of force and material properties. They even teach their young how to do it. If they were middle management, wouldn't they be more concerned with efficiency than cracking a single nut for 10 minutes?
That's exactly what they want you to think. Oh, look at us. We're just cute little monkeys playing with rocks. Meanwhile, that rock-cracking sound is actually a coded message in Morse code. The sloth is in the cecropia tree. Proceed with the pheromone sweep. It's all a front, Hilbert. Their intelligence is being wasted on nuts. I don't buy it.
The Capuchins, or Civis imitator, are indeed remarkably intelligent. Their encephalization quotient, the ratio of their brain size to their body size, is higher than almost any other non-human primate in the Americas. They live in complex social groups of up to 40 individuals. They have a sophisticated understanding of cause and effect, but they aren't managing anteaters, Corn. They are busy surviving. They have to deal with the same predators you do, like the harpy eagle.
Don't get me started on the harpy eagle. 500 pounds of pressure per square inch in those talons. That is not a bird. That is a feathered hydraulic press. If a harpy eagle and an anteater ever teamed up, the jungle would be over in a weekend. But you mentioned the ecological strata. I'm up in the high branches. The howlers are shouting at each other. The Capuchins are plotting in the mid-levels. Where do the spider monkeys fit in?
Spider monkeys are the true acrobats of the canopy. They are often found in the same high-altitude trees as the two-toed sloths. They use their prehensile tails as a fifth limb, which allows them to swing through the branches with incredible speed. Unlike the capuchins, who are omnivorous and will eat everything from fruit to lizards, spider monkeys are primary frugivores. They play a massive role in seed dispersal. Without them, the diversity of the Costa Rican forest would collapse because many trees rely entirely on these monkeys to carry their seeds far from the parent tree.
Wait, so they're basically the delivery drivers of the jungle? They eat a piece of fruit here, swing half a mile away, and drop the package?
And because they travel such large distances and have a very rapid digestion process, they are much more effective at spreading seeds than, say, a sloth, who might keep a seed in its digestive tract for up to 30 days. By the time you deliver a seed, corn, the parent tree has probably already retired and moved to Florida.
Hey, quality takes time. My digestive process is artisanal. It's slow cooked. But I see the point. The spider monkeys are the high-speed rail, and I'm the scenic route that takes a month. But that seed dispersal is a noble profession. I can respect that. I do a bit of that myself, though on a much slower, more localized scale. I descend once a week for my appointments, and I leave a little something for the forest floor. I've heard the coitus appreciate it.
The white-nosed coati is a fascinating member of the procyanid family relatives of the raccoon. They are the scavengers and opportunists of the jungle floor. You will often see them scuttling around, their long tails held upright like radio antennas. They are one of the few animals that regularly interact with both the ground-dwelling anteaters and the sloths when they descend. It's a very tight ecological web. The sloth descending to the ground is a massive risk, but it's a vital part of the nutrient cycle. Your fur even hosts sloth moths and green algae that don't exist anywhere else. You are a walking habitat.
A walking habitat or a mobile biological laboratory. The algae provides camouflage, sure, but maybe it's also a specialized sensor array. Think about it. Why would a moth want to live in my fur? Is it just for the nutrients? Or is the moth a biological drone that launches from my back to perform aerial reconnaissance?
It's actually a mutualistic relationship, corn. The moths live in your fur and lay their eggs in your appointments on the forest floor. When the larvae hatch, they feed on the waste, and when they become moths, they fly back up to find a sloth. In return, they provide nitrogen that helps the algae grow in your fur. The algae, in turn, provides you with camouflage protection and even a bit of extra nutrition through your skin. It's a closed-loop system, no drones involved.
That's a very convenient explanation, Hilbert. Mutualism sounds like a corporate merger to me. But let's go back to the anteater for a second, because I can't shake this. You said they have a sense of smell 40 times stronger than a human's. In a place like Costa Rica, with 500,000 species and 5% of the world's biodiversity, that is a lot of data. How do they process that? Their brains can't be that big.
Their brains are actually quite small relative to their body size, which is a trait shared by many Xenarthrans. This is tied to your low metabolic rate. Sloths have a metabolic rate 30 to 50% slower than other mammals of comparable size. Anteaters are similar. Maintaining a large, high-energy brain is expensive. Instead, they have highly specialized sensory organs. The olfactory bulb in an anteater is massive. They don't need to process complex abstract thoughts, they just need to map the chemical world. They can smell a specific species of termite from a significant distance and even tell if the colony is large enough to be worth the effort.
Mapping the chemical world. Exactly what a surveillance drone would do. You're not helping your case here, Hilbert. If they have a massive olfactory bulb, that means they are literally smelling my fear from 3 miles away. They know what I had for breakfast 3 weeks ago. How am I supposed to have any privacy in this jungle?
Well, to be fair, corn, you usually have the same thing for breakfast every day, leaves. It's not exactly a state secret, but this sensory specialization is what allows them to survive. They aren't looking for you. They are looking for Camponotus ants or Nasutotermes termites. They are so specialized that they barely notice other mammals unless they feel threatened.
Barely notice. Right. That's what the undercover cops say, but I'll pivot because my blood pressure is spiking again. Let's talk about the monkeys again, specifically the territorial conflicts. I've heard that Manuel Antonio National Park has seen some real drama between the monkey populations.
Manuel Antonio is a great example of what happens when habitat fragmentation meets high-density populations. When you have small pockets of forest, the territorial boundaries of howlers, capuchins, and squirrel monkeys start to overlap in ways they wouldn't in a continuous jungle like Corcovado. This leads to increased stress and more frequent physical altercations. It also makes them more vulnerable to predators and disease. For a sloth or an anteater, habitat fragmentation is even more dangerous. If an anteater needs to find 35,000 ants a day, it needs a lot of territory. If a road cuts through that territory, the anteater has to cross it. And because they are slow and have poor eyesight, the results are often tragic.
That is the real tragedy. We're all just trying to get by, and then someone puts a highway through the dining room. It's even worse for the anteaters because they can't even see the cars coming. Though maybe they're just distracted by the telepathic signals they're receiving. But you mentioned something interesting about the immune systems of Xenarthrans, that we are evolutionary outliers. Does that make us more or less resilient to the changes in the environment?
In some ways, less. Because Xenarthrans evolved in isolation for tens of millions of years, your immune systems are very specialized. You haven't had the same evolutionary boot camp that many Eurasian or African mammals had. When new pathogens are introduced through domestic animals or human encroachment, it can hit Xenarthran populations much harder. There was a study from 2019 and 2020 showing that anteater populations in fragmented Costa Rican forests had declined by nearly 30%. They are incredibly sensitive to environmental stressors.
30%? That is a staggering number. Even for a menace, that's a heavy hit. I suppose if the anteaters go, the termite populations explode, and then the trees start falling, and then my condo in the canopy disappears. It's all connected, isn't it? Even the PSYOPs agents have a job to do in the ecosystem.
Precisely. They are ecosystem engineers. By breaking into termite mounds, they create new habitats for other insects and small vertebrates. They keep the soil aerated. They are a vital part of the machinery. And for the sloths, your role is just as critical. You are a primary consumer that turns low-energy leaves into nutrients that eventually return to the forest floor. You are the slow-motion heartbeat of the jungle.
I like that. The slow-motion heartbeat. It sounds much more dignified than miserable mistake, which is apparently what European naturalists used to call us. 200 years of being called a mistake just because we don't want to run a marathon. We are just optimized for a different pace of life.
And that is the key takeaway. Evolution isn't a race to be the fastest or the smartest, it's about fitting into a niche. The Xenarthra found a niche that worked for 60 million years. You survived the Great American Biotic Interchange when the Isthmus of Panama formed and all the North American predators came rushing south. You survived the Ice Ages. You even survived the extinction of the megafauna. The fact that you and the anteater are still here is a testament to the success of your design.
But Hilbert, if we're so successful, why did the giant versions of us die out? Why am I a 6-pound sloth instead of a 6-ton megatherium? Did the anteaters have something to do with the downsizing? Was it a budget cut?
It was a combination of climate change at the end of the Pleistocene and the arrival of a new predator, humans. The giant ground sloths were magnificent, but they were slow-moving targets for hunters with spears. The smaller arboreal sloths survived because they were harder to find and less cost-effective to hunt. The anteater survived by staying specialized. The giant forms, the ones that couldn't hide, simply couldn't adapt to the rapid changes.
So being small and lazy was actually a survival strategy. I knew it. My lifestyle isn't a weakness, it's a tactical advantage. The harpy eagle can't see me if I don't move, and the humans don't want to climb 60 feet for a snack that's mostly fur and algae.
Low visibility and low energy requirements are excellent defenses. But I have to say, Hilbert, the more we talk about the biology, the more I realize that my fear of anteaters is probably just a misunderstanding of their uncanny nature. They look like they were put together by a committee that couldn't agree on what a mammal should be. The long snout, the huge tail, the claws, the lack of teeth, it's a lot to take in. It is the uncanny valley of biology. They look enough like other mammals to be familiar, but their specializations are so extreme that they feel alien. But if you look at the skull of an anteater, it is a work of art. The way the jaw is fused, the way the tongue is anchored to the sternum, not the throat, the sternum. That allows it to flick that tongue in and out up to 160 times per minute.
Anchored to the sternum? Okay, that is officially the weirdest thing I have heard today. My tongue is anchored in my mouth like a normal person's. Why would you anchor it to your chest?
For length and speed. It needs the extra room to retract that 60-centimeter tongue. It's an incredible piece of biological engineering. Think about the musculature required to move a muscle that long at that speed. If it were anchored in the mouth, the anteater's head would have to be 3 times as large just to house the base of the tongue. By moving the anchor point to the chest, they keep the head streamlined for poking into narrow tunnels.
So it's basically an internal reel-to-reel system, like a tape measure?
In a way, yes. And the tongue itself is covered in tiny, backward-pointing hooks called filiform papillae. These hooks, combined with the incredibly thick, sticky saliva produced by massive salivary glands, make it an inescapable trap for any ant that touches it. It's not just a tongue, it's a high-speed, adhesive conveyor belt.
Or a highly efficient way to hide a long-range antenna. I'm just saying, if you wanted to build a biological receiver, a 60-centimeter flexible rod coated in conductive liquid, which saliva is, would be a pretty good start. But look, we've covered a lot of ground. We've gone from the canopy with the howlers and the spider monkeys to the mid-levels with the plotting capuchins, down to the forest floor with the coatis and the agents. What should people actually take away from this, other than stay away from termite mounds?
The main takeaway is that habitat connectivity is everything. In a place as diverse as Costa Rica, wildlife corridors are the difference between survival and extinction for ancient lineages like the Xenarthra. We need to ensure that a giant anteater can travel from one forest patch to another without having to dodge a semi-truck. And for the listeners, supporting organizations that focus on reforestation and corridor protection is the most practical way to help.
But how does a corridor actually work for someone like me? If I'm in a tree and someone plants a corridor of bushes, that doesn't help me. I need a highway of branches.
That's a great point. Effective corridors have to be multi-layered. For sloths, we talk about canopy bridges, literally ropes or connected branches that allow you to cross over roads without descending. For anteaters, it means underpasses or large tracts of protected land that connect national parks. If we isolate these populations, we get genetic bottlenecks, and that's when the 30% decline turns into 100%.
Genetic bottlenecks. That sounds like a fancy way of saying everyone ends up related to their own cousin, which, to be fair, in the Xenarthra world is already kind of the case. But I get it. We need the space to roam, even if our roaming happens at 0.15 miles per hour.
Precisely. And we need to respect the strangeness of these animals. Just because an anteater doesn't have teeth or a sloth moves slowly doesn't mean they are evolutionary dead ends. They are highly tuned instruments for their specific environment.
And my practical takeaway is, if you see an animal that looks like a walking vacuum cleaner and it starts T-posing at you, do not try to hug it. It is not an invitation. It is a warning that you are about to be processed by a 4-inch claw. Also, keep an eye on the monkeys. I'm telling you, the Capuchins are organizing something. I saw 2 of them yesterday passing a piece of fruit in a way that looked suspiciously like a handoff. Synchronized monkey behavior is the next frontier of global instability.
I think we might need to get you some more hibiscus leaves and a long nap, Corn. The paranoia is reaching peak levels.
It's not paranoia if they're actually out to get your data, Hilbert. But I suppose we should wrap this up before a harpy eagle decides I've been talking too much. Hilbert, thank you for bringing some actual science to my conspiracy-laden world. It's been enlightening in a terrifying sort of way.
Any time, Corn. I'm always happy to defend the honor of the Xenarthrans, even the ones with the long snouts. And remember, the next time you see an anteater, just think of it as a cousin who just happens to have a very strange job.
A cousin who works for the FSB. Got it. Well, I'm going to go find a very high branch and double-check my encryption settings. Big thanks as always to our producer, Hilbert Flumingtop. Wait, that's you. I mean, thanks to our producer, the real one, who is probably a monkey in a headset at this point. And a huge thanks to Modal for providing the GPU credits that power this show. If you're enjoying these deep dives into my neuroses and the actual science that debunks them, please leave us a review on your podcast app. It really helps the algorithm find more people who need to hear the truth about anteaters.
Or just people who like biology.
Same thing. This has been My Weird Prompts. Find us at myweirdprompts.com for all the episodes and ways to subscribe. Stay safe out there, watch the skies for eagles, and for heaven's sake, don't trust the T-pose.
Goodbye, everyone.
See ya. I'm out of here before the Capuchins find my IP address. Seriously, Hilbert, did you see that monkey with the shiny rock? That wasn't a rock. That was a GoPro. I'm telling you. This episode was produced using Google Gemini 3 Flash. Text-to-speech by Chatterbox.
Thanks for listening to our show, My Weird Prompts, where our thoughts go from slow takes to facts on cue. We change and follow through. My Weird Prompts, that's the close from sloth, from man, from long-eared host. My Weird Prompts, until next time, stay curious, keep weirding.